The last Sky Cricket podcast of the domestic summer, September the 30th. It is. We both left Bristol last night, Nas. It was thoroughly miserable, about 3 degrees, absolutely hammering down by the time I got to Bristol Parkway. Um, and just a reflection that, it was the latest ever international and it felt like it. And seemed a long time ago since we did what was our first podcast of the summer? It
Zach,
was at Old Trafford, wasn't it? What is Zach
Zach,
Crawley doing today?
yeah.
Well, we put the kiss of death on him, all right, because he ended up with a bust finger and missing most of the second half of the summer. But it's felt like a long summer.
It has. I've enjoyed it as ever. It's been an enjoyable summer across all formats, and there are so many formats and so many games. Really enjoyed it. A successful summer for England, would you say? I mean, 5-1 Test series. Disappointing end yesterday because that would have been unbeaten across men's and women's cricket in series, wouldn't it? Because the women
Yeah,
certainly didn't lose a series.
I'd written them down because there's so many, as you know. I think there's about 30 international matches all told. But the England men beat Pakistan in the T20 series, semi-finalists of the World Cup, beat West Indies 3-0, beat Sri Lanka 2-1, drawn T20 series against Australia and a defeat in the ODI series. And the women, of course, a clean sweep, 3-0, 2-0 in the T20 and ODI series against Pakistan, 3-0, 3-0 against New Zealand in T20s and ODIs, and 2-1 against Ireland. So all told, in terms of results, it's hard to say that it's been anything other than a successful summer for the England men's and women's teams.
Yeah, and those players across the board, whether it be international or domestic, they deserved a glass of whatever they had last night, and they'll be heading off to their PCA events do and having a right do. And there'll be a few that would have hung their boots up, and a few that have gone through another season. What have you enjoyed most about the summer, and what have you enjoyed least? Would you say?
Well, the schedule is always the bugbear, isn't it? Just trying to make sense of it all, and clearly having what should be a cracking fixture or set of fixtures against Australia going so late into autumn really is a measure of how difficult the scheduling is. So that's always a problematic thing. But there's always high points to think about. I mean, I would go back to Lords and the end of Jimmy Anderson. That was a big call that they had to make at the start of the summer, actually. It's proved to be, I think, the right call, given that Gus Atkinson came in and did so well with the new ball. But I like the fact that McCullum and Key, went out of their way to sit Jimmy Anderson down face to face. Anderson didn't like the decision, but he came to some accommodation with it. But then had 5 days where he was centre stage. Obviously, England won. He took wickets. And it was one of those occasions that cricket does so well, really, at the end when he's walking off the ground, standing to him, wife and kids there, mum and dad there, family there. And then he necked that pint of Guinness rather well on the balcony, I thought. Your moment? I know we talked about it a bit yesterday, and you liked
I,
the Joe
well,
Root moment going
I
past
love,
Alistair
yeah.
Cook's record.
Yeah, I love the Lord's Test anyway, and Joe Root is just such a top man and such a great ambassador for our game. I just thought it was a fitting place for him to equal Sir Alistair and go past, and the way he does it and the way he's batted for over a decade now has just been a joy to watch, really. And he seems to have that hunger and that energy and that smile on his face that he's had throughout his career, apart from as we know, towards the end of his captaincy during COVID times, that smile disappeared. But it's back. He's enjoying his cricket and playing as well as ever. And obviously, our old mate Graham Thorpe would have been looking down on him with great fondness and very proud of someone that he thought was a fabulous bloke and a fabulous cricketer, playing so well that week. So I enjoyed that. Domestically, the gaffer, three in a row.
Amazing.
We had him on, and
Amazing.
he was hoping to do it, and they did do it. And for whatever money bags or whatever you've called them in the past, but that is some achievement to do 3 on the bounce with the players they lose for international cricket and for franchise cricket. That is a very well run club that performs on and off the field.
Yeah, I mean that they have the financial heft to deal with some of the challenges that other clubs don't have. They're losing a lot of players, and the franchise challenges. I think Surrey used 23 players in the championship. They've got 16 internationals on their books or had at various stages this summer. But that requires some managing, as you know, managing egos when big name players don't get in the first choice side. Then when other players come back from being away in franchise cricket, that is a difficult thing to do, I think. So all credit, all hail, Alec. On Surrey's three-timer, and those going down, Lancashire,
Yeah,
who would be
what
the kind of Surrey
you?
of the
How
North, my
grumpy,
old
how
club.
grumpy were you yesterday at Bristol? Lancashire down and Yorkshire up. I mean, and
Unbelievable.
Man United losing 3-0 at home. It wasn't a good day for the Northwest.
I know. Lancashire down, Kent down, and Yorkshire, who've had a difficult time of it. Well done to Otis Gibson, who's leaving there. Has worked under some difficult conditions. They've gone up along with Sussex. Again, congratulations to Paul Farbrace. They've had some difficult times sticking with some young players, and they've turned it round and go up as champions. So,
And the
yeah, that's
and the headwinds of cricket, ticket prices, it reared its ugly head this year at Lords, out of all places, at Lords. Is that something we
yeah.
need to monitor? Is it the first summer that we've suddenly got to realise we can't take Test cricket for granted in England?
Well, I think again, scheduling is important. We talked about having two series of three back-to-back tests, which will affect the quality. And if you're charging premium price tickets, you need to make sure that quality is up. So there's two aspects, I suppose. One is the nature of the supply and demand. So ticket prices will wax and wane according to supply and demand. But if you're not offering top quality cricket for those kind of prices, then it's going to be a problem. And both touring teams arrived a little undercooked because of the nature of the scheduling. And then you're asking players to go through a test, then 3 days later a test, then 3 days after that a test. And I'm afraid that is going to affect quality in the end. So they're definite warning signs or things to look out for. Um, and the game is changing rapidly, isn't it? We're recording this on the day that's been announced that
Yeah.
the Delhi franchise have bought a majority stake in Hampshire, and that won't be the last county club where ownership changes hands over the next few years, and where maybe ownership moves away from members' clubs to more privately owned clubs. And of course, the next few months are going to be interesting where the sale of the 100 is concerned. There's lots of differing opinions, and it's a difficult story to report sometimes because it's in the ECB's interest to talk up the kind of levels of interest, so they inflate the price, and it's in the investors' interest to talk it down and deflate the price. It will all come out in the wash, and we'll wait and see what kind of price they get for these things, because that in the end will determine whether it's been worth it, because that's why, in my view, the thing has been set up to bring external money into the game. That's why they did it. So the measure of it will be how much external money comes into the game, and then trying to work out the schedule.
But after a difficult winter where, even before the winter, they lost the World Cup, the 50 over World Cup, T20 World Cup semi final. They lost in India. It was a bit doom and gloom about the men's international cricket side in both formats. Fair to say they're back on track, or is that the jury still out because it was home conditions? We got to wait away from home, Australia, but they've played some very good cricket this summer.
Yeah, as you know, I'm a huge fan of what uh, Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes have done with the Test match team. From it's only 2 years, what is it, 2 or 3 years in, they've transformed it, in my view. And you can only beat what's in front of you. West Indies weren't that good this summer. Sri Lanka actually played some pretty decent cricket across the three games. And in white ball cricket, when you get back Root and Stokes and Butler, that looks actually quite a difficult side to get into if you're if you're a batter. There's going to be a bit of a logjam there, so they've got some interesting calls to make. Um, but yeah, I mean, they've had a good summer. You can't quibble with that. And we'll speak next week, around about maybe after the first test in Multan, and we'll see how England are going in UAE. To which we've got an interesting guest this week. Urooj Mumtaz, who both has a perspective, being a former player for the Pakistan women's team and a current commentator. Uh, and she'll be commentating on the men's series. So we're going to catch up with her and get her views on what's to come. Well, I'm delighted to say that Urooj Mumtaz has joined us, former Pakistan player, of course, now a commentator. I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying the only qualified dentist who operates on the commentary circuit. Look at that smile. I mean, that's a smile that only a dentist could give you. And a colleague, of course, you were with us earlier in the summer when the Pakistan women's team was over, and we're looking forward to hearing you on the forthcoming series against England. Urooj, how are you? Where are you?
Oh, well, I'm very good, and it's nice to see the two of you again. Just flew in from Lahore, from Faisalabad, where the Champions Cup just culminated with Shadab Khan's team lifting the trophy. So just made it in time for your podcast.
Um, Tell us all about Pakistan cricket then. NASA the other day on our live broadcast said that Pakistan's going through one of its phases. I don't quite know what he meant by that, but I think I know what he meant by that, in that Pakistan always seems to be going through phases. Their test match record of late is not very good. Why?
You're just being polite. I think it's been horrible, to say the least. And it started from England visiting us in what back end of 2022 with the advent of baseball, which obviously caught Pakistan by surprise. But just from there on in, I just feel that Pakistan have not been up to the mark in terms of delivering fundamentals correctly. I mean, yes, there's been oppositions that have done well, but it hasn't been like they've completely blown Pakistan out of the water. Australia was good when they played away. They played well in Sri Lanka away, but at home, there seems to be a disjoint between what Pakistan understand as their strength, because I don't think they themselves can put a finger on what their strength is. They've moved so far away from fast bowling batteries, and we just seems that our fast bowling, which used to be around 145 clicks, has fallen off the boil about 135 average speeds. Fitness has been an issue, and our batting as well. In terms of you can look at some techniques, even batting prowess. We just haven't evolved as a red ball side, let alone trying to catch up to baseball or what the other modern day teams are doing. So at home, I feel there's a huge lack of recognition of what seems to be our strength, and then going on developing pitches in tune with that, and then almost seems to be lost at calling pitches flat, which haven't been, and the opposition seems to have a better understanding of it. So I just feel there's a lot that's gone on, and like Nas probably says, one of those phases, one after the other.
I mean, I was speaking to Af about it. When I said one of those phases, it's not how Pakistan usually are. Pakistan are usually unpredictable, mercurial Pakistan, where they're up one day, down the next. Actually, this particular phase, there is a lot of down. I mean, I'll read the stats and you'll know it. Pakistan in Test cricket, since England last saw their matches, played 9, won 2, lost 5, their last 5, and have drawn through in the last 4 series only won one series. So it is actually not mercurial Pakistan. It is actually a real low point for Pakistan. When you add on how they went in the World Cup, it must be difficult being a Pakistan fan at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Pakistan has such a rich history of cricket back home, and like you're saying, we've produced quality sides which have done so much wonderful stuff. But this just seems from one new low to another new low, and feel sort of you always feel for Gary Kirsten and Jason Gillespie, new into the roles. Gary had to deal with a loss against the US, and obviously not the best of performances in the World Cup, and then for Jason Gillespie, Pakistan never lost to Bangladesh before in Test cricket, and let alone that, to lose 2-0 at home with the first one a 10 wicket defeat. I just feel there's a lot of loose ends that he needs to tie up along with Shan, and it will take some time. I do like some of the good stuff that's being said about consistency in selection and also recognizing the brand of cricket that they want to play. They use the word intent, but they need to understand what that interpretation is. Intent could be baseball, intent could just be batting out difficult periods of the game, a good spell of bowling as well. I think that recognition seems to be missing. You look at the collective pool of players, the core group still remains the same. I just feel there's a lot of outside noise which has derailed the Pakistan team for what couple of years in now.
Just looking at the team that played against Bangladesh, would I be right in assuming that the top 6, top 7 is going to look pretty similar against England. But there are more question marks about the makeup of the bowling lineup, which changed from the first test to the second in that series against Bangladesh.
Yeah, I mean, Sean says this repeatedly, and when you play Test cricket, it's about picking up those 20 wickets. Now, Pakistan needs to find those bowlers who have the stamina and the match fitness to execute to pick up those 20 wickets. And I think that's where they've lagged. Yes, they talk about consistency in the batting, which they've done well. But with the bowling, it was almost Shan was forced to play fast bowlers to cover for the three if they broke down. And that's exactly what happened, where they couldn't fit a spinner in because they were struggling with the match fitness of those quicker bowlers who hadn't played Test cricket in a very long time. Muhammad Ali broke down, Khurram Shahzad broke down. He picked up a side strain and hence misses out in this one as well. Amir Jamal makes a comeback after an injury. He was also unfit and unwell during the Champions Cup recently. So that bowling unit, and whether they play that spinner or not, even when England was here last time, they didn't play a Brar. And when the fast bowlers were thrashed all around, then they brought a Brar in who picked up 7 for an 11 in the game. They played abroad this time round again in the second test, but he's been so far off red ball bowling that he couldn't hold a line. He bowled about 30 odd overs in the first innings, didn't pick up a wicket. So now they've gone back to bringing Noman in, who did well, but he hasn't been part of the setup for a while. So there's a little bit of confusion because I think they're still trying to figure out what their top 4 or 5 bowlers will be who play this test, B, the conditions that they produce to suit them, and which of them can actually last the 5 days multiplied by the 3 test matches.
And Babar Azam, what about his form? Run the rule over his form, which has been in. He's obviously a wonderful player, a world class player, but he's been in some decline of late.
Yeah, for a while now. I think when across formats, really, I think we talk about Babar Azam, and there's so much expectation of him. He sets the bar so high, and even with Shan in that number 3 and 4 position, both of them, Shan did get a couple of 50s, but both of them seem to be struggling for runs. I thought Saim was good up the order, but I just feel Babar just needs to sort of go back to the drawing board a little bit, give himself time. You see the ways he's gotten out. When there was Amir Suhail alongside me in comms, alluding to a little bit of technical error, maybe where he becomes too far front on. If that's the thing, if that's where his mental headspace is, and then faltering in technique. He had a decent run in the Champions Cup recently in the 50 over version. He did score 1 big century as well. Maybe that just strings form together. But I think it has to do more with the captaincy, the non captaincy, what happened at the World Cup. I don't think it's purely down to technique. I think there's more to that than for Babar Azam just not scoring runs alone.
What are the positives? We're a bit doom and gloom at the moment. We've written off your best player. We've written off your team. What are the positives in this Pakistan team? Apart from, obviously, I mean, the undoubted talent there is throughout Pakistan cricket. Who are we looking for a bright future?
I think Saim Ayub thoroughly impressive in both test matches. And he's a sort of player with a flair. He doesn't hold back. You've seen him in the white ball version. Broke on the scene at the HBL, PSL with a lot of sort of no-look shots that he became a bit known for. But I think it was good testing for him when the likes of Hassan Mahmood in particular was bowling those good channels versus Bangladesh. And he rode out those areas or periods of passages of play which was slightly tough, tested his technique. I think him up the order is a very fine prospect. And that middle order you talk about with Saud Shakil, Muhammad Rizwan, and Salman Ali Agha. For a while, they've done extremely well in that test format and held Pakistan together to sort of dig them out of trouble and obviously get on with the scoring. So I still find Saud and Salman two very important aspects, even going into the England test match. I think they're both versatile. They play spin well. And looking at the England squad that's coming home, I'm sure there'll be a lot of spin they'll have to tackle.
And what about that fast bowling attack? Because a similar thing happened, if I remember, it was a while ago, obviously, in the England-Pakistan series, that they weren't ready for red ball cricket, a fitness thing more than anything else. How many overs have they got in their legs? Nazim Shah, Shaheen Shah, Afridi. Will they be fit for what is, 3 back-to-back test matches?
That's another tough one because neither of those, Shaheen or Naseem, played the second test match against Bangladesh. Shaheen Shafidi, obviously a new father, so he was going home, and they said it's probably best to take time off. Jason Gillespie said there's a few things that he needs to work on his bowling with, so whether that's been sorted. Naseem Shah also didn't play the second test match where it wasn't an injury concern, so I'm not quite sure where that came from because it seems like all of them last played on Australia and they needed that red ball practice. Even now, Pakistan's gone and played a one-day version of the game, which, yes, most of Shaheen and Naseem in particular have bowled the 10 overs apiece. Mir Hamza, I feel, whether he gets a place or not, because they probably will look at Amir Jamal as that fast bowling all rounder at number 8. But he had his fair share of struggles with health concerns during that Champions Cup in Faisalabad, which will probably have similar temperature and weather as in Multan. It's going to be hot and humid, and whether the surfaces will sort of really bend their back or not, we'll have to see. But I just feel like match fitness or sort of miles in the legs it will be a little bit of a concern considering the past, especially what happened in Bangladesh.
Just for England supporters who are listening to this, who might not know about the domestic schedule in Pakistan, you mentioned that they've just come off the back of a 50-over tournament. How does domestic cricket look in Pakistan at the moment?
There's been a little bit of a change in the domestic version where we had the sort of national T20 competition, the national one-day competition, and the four-day tournament, the red ball stuff called the Kaiser Trophy. The new chairman's come in and he's added three more tournaments where there's been an amalgamation of 150 top cricketers in the country, five equally balanced teams who will play the one-day T20 and the red ball as well. So from three, they've gone to six main tournaments along with the PSL as well. So there seems to be a little bit of more concentration on the quality of cricket to bridge that gap, say from domestic when you throw your players into the deep end at the international circuit. So that seems to be the aim of it. And that's where the tournament in Faisalabad called the Champions Cup just finished. So yes, it was the 50 over version, which sort of begs the question as well that we really struggled with the red ball, especially the bowling. Was there a chance here that the red ball players, especially the bowlers, went away and bowled longer spells? On the contrary, they were still bowling 10 over spells in the number of games that they got in that 17-day tournament. So that was a bit of a toss-up, but I think the management felt that match sort of game time as well was important. So that's why all of your national team players were playing that tournament.
And how has Shan Masood gone? You've got a newish captain now. Whenever myself or Ath have interviewed him, spoke to him, he's obviously a very bright, very smart cricket brain. Speaks very well about the game. How has he gone? How's he gone down with the Pakistan public?
Yeah, I think he's someone who's trying to bring about a change. He's trying to sort of reignite the flair of Pakistan with a slightly newer philosophy which dovetails or should dovetail with where the modern game is at. He's the one who obviously talks about playing the positive brand of cricket, and he tries to emulate that as much as possible. Where even in the Bangladesh post-match presentation, he spoke about trying to score those runs quickly. That declaration that came around in that first test match where we lost the first day's play against Bangladesh, trying to put time back in the game. The captaincy, obviously, let's not forget, he's still very new into this. 3 matches in Australia and 2 matches at home. So he's only captained the 5 games at the international levels, albeit he's obviously captained in county cricket back home. So I think he's trying to bring about a change where, like we spoke about, seems like all doom and gloom, and then he's trying to reignite all of that. So he still has to show the results for, and that's where the public sort of the way Pakistan the public is, we don't give a lot of people a lot of time, so they can become cruel very very quickly, and the 2-0 loss against Bangladesh did not help Shan's cause as well, right? So the other thing is he has to score runs. He has to sort of lead the team with the bat as well. So I think on both fronts it's going to be a massive challenge for him against England.
And the fact that there are 2 foreign coaches or non-Pakistan national coaches, has that just been accepted and welcomed, Gary Kirsten and Jason Gillespie, or is there a bit of disquiet that that not homegrown coaches in there? How's the reaction been to them?
I think Pakistan, off late, at least in the past decade, has now become used to the fact that there are foreign coaches at the helm of affairs of Pakistan cricket, and they've produced results as well. I think they will be very quickly accepted if the results change. Yes, England will be a massive challenge, but from the cricketing fraternity, there seems to be an understanding that at least Jason Gillespie and Shan Masood are on the same page, which is very important. They say the same sort of words, the messaging is the same, and they're very clear. There's a lot of transparency in what they're trying to do, which then translates into the players buying into that fact. So again, like I said, Pakistan, we can go from bad to very good very quickly. So England will be a test for sure because, like I said earlier as well, Jason Gillespie 2-0 against Bangladesh. That's where he started. And he's been given a group of players who's been down and out for a while. So it's more so a double sort of a challenge for him against England.
Do you ever see things behind the scenes in Pakistan cricket calming down? Because there's always new captains, there's always new coaches. I think Mohammed Yusuf yesterday stood down as a selector for personal reasons. Last minute announcements for venues, Champions Trophy going on behind the scenes, venue checking whether India will come or not, all the stuff that goes on with Pakistan cricket. If there are constant changes behind the scenes, that means a new person comes in, wants maybe a new coach, a new captain, new style, new brand, and you go round in circles. If you can have consistency behind the scenes, that will surely lead to a more consistent side. Will that ever happen?
That requires one sort of out of the hat kind of thing. Again, it's been Pakistan for years now. The outside noise, the musical chairs, and all that drama that goes on. That's not something that Pakistan's new to. Having said that, we do well in spite of all of that. So absolutely agree with you. Had that if that would be consistent, I just feel the players would have a little bit less to worry about because no matter what, you can't take that away. That it always probably looms in the back of their heads, in the back of their minds. What next? What if? And you don't want to be playing international cricket where there's so much responsibility on you with that. But having said that, I think we just tuned to function with all of that drama around us. Which again, then you look at it from a Pakistani perspective, where you're so used to it that responsibility still lies on the player. So it's a bit of a tug of war as to how much you're willing to give and let the players get away with, and how much responsibility should they actually be putting onto those shoulders and putting their hands up and say, all right, we need to do better. So I think that tug of war will always remain.
I mean, there was enormous frustration here in England. NASA mentioned that the late call on the venues, which originally I think the itinerary should have been Multan, Karachi, Pindi. Problem with the Karachi Stadium is they're trying to get it ready for the Champions Trophy, are they? So we've ended up Multan, Pindi. But of course, for England supporters who are trying to book flights and accommodation, it's incredibly late, which is symptomatic of the kind of uncertainty that you're talking about. And should we expect? I mean, the stadiums will be fine, will they? Once we get to Multan and Pindi, because presumably they have to be got ready as well for the Champions Trophy.
Yeah, those two venues haven't yet been touched in terms of any remodeling, if there will be, and I don't know if they will have enough time post the England series. So it's Karachi and Lahore which are being redone at the moment. And also to add to that, Shan in his press conference today mentioned how difficult it was for him being home captain, not knowing how the venues would be finalized in order to then pick a squad. Hence why the late inclusion of Zahid Mahmood into the 15 to make that a 16 member squad. So it just adds to everyone's difficulty, and it just sort of, and you scratch your head like, we knew all of these things were lined up, they just didn't dawn upon us. So again, coming back to Pakistan, we could do so much better if we sort of put all our dots in a row and carry on with things and let the players have enough time in terms of scheduling and all of that, because it does wear down on everyone.
And what about pitches? What pitches should England expect? The two tests in Multan and then Pindi. You did try and leave some grass on the first test match pitch. Did it make any difference? Did it go through and suddenly the seamers exploit that? What would you guess the pitches? And also a difficult question, but what pitches do you think would suit Pakistan cricket? If you had used home advantage, what would that be?
Yeah, answer your second question first. I think we spoke about this earlier. I think Pakistan is still struggling to recognize what pitches suit them. Because off late, I think, since Saeed Ajmal and Yasir Shah left red ball cricket, we're yet to find a quality frontline spinner. And we've just fallen off the ball with playing quality spin as well, which was similar in Bangladesh between Shakib Al Hasan and Mehdi Hassan Miraz. They got the better of Pakistan's batters through and through. So whether they produce spinning tracks, but I don't think Pakistan's strength is playing spin at the moment. So I think they will still rely on giving their quicker bowlers the best of chance. They did that against Bangladesh, left 6 and 9 millimeters respectively, quoting Sean here for those test match and hoping to give assistance to their quicker bowlers. I still feel our quick bowling battery is our strength. And if we do lose the toss and are put in, our batting quality should have the fundamentals to play out passages of play with the new ball if it does something off the surface in the beginning. So I think those questions put into two. With Multan again, they last played when England was here last, back end of 2022 in that test match. They haven't played there since. So even for the home side at the moment, till they don't arrive in Multan, they will not have a clue. Hence why the confusion with the squad selection, and hence why the spin was reinforced with that. But I still feel, I don't think, at least in my opinion, it will be spin friendly.
And just turn our attentions away from that. Pakistan's chances in the women's T20 World Cup. I know NASA's flying to the UAE later tonight after this podcast. They're in the tougher group of the two, really, aren't they?
Yeah, but I like what Fatma Sana said. I think, firstly, great choice of captain, someone who's young, not afraid to take decisions, has a smart cricketing brain. Obviously, new into the challenge, along with the new head coach Mohammad Wasim as well. So they'll have their work cut out for sure. But I think one game at a time is what she said, and let's focus on getting things right. I think for Pakistan, and you guys were there when we played against England when Pakistan toured in May this year. Fielding, well, it seems to be a problem across formats, across gender sports in Pakistan, the male and female version. We just seem to carry that around. But that's something that hurts Pakistan. Our fielding, again, South Africa came to Pakistan in a three match. Pakistan lost 1 to 2. But again, fielding is what let them down massively. And then again, power hitting, that strength within our batting lineup will be key if they are to get over the line, especially with the likes of New Zealand and Sri Lanka, those two teams. Remember, Pakistan also has a good track record in T20 World Cups against India. So a little bit of inspiration can be drawn from there, but I think they'll have to, again, the top order needs to fire, needs to make use of that power play. And they've also gone to the very spin heavy, as the women's version has done in the recent past. They've gone with the two leggies, the two left armers, and they've left Hani the off spinner out because Nida obviously automatic cut for that. So yes, they're in the tougher group, but I think just the way they played against South Africa, I sort of almost hope they might just be able to do enough to get into that next round, maybe.
And Fatima spoke about the new brand and style they're trying to achieve in the top at the top of the order in the power play to go harder. I always see them as a side that are very good with the ball, but if you get above 140, 150, that's been their ceiling. But actually against South Africa, I think they got a 180 recently by going hard, by having almost risking it with explosive batting. Do you think they've got the players to do that?
Now that's again another question. Fatma Sanai was in the first game. It wasn't until when she came out, where we were far behind in the game, and started playing strokes when she came into bat at 7. That's when Alia decided to have a go as well. And I think she spoke after that game, and she wasn't afraid to again tell the players openly, we need to play quicker from ball one. And they came out and doing that in the second game that you mentioned, where they scored the 181 and they won that game. They do have that firepower in the middle, and with the likes of Nida, Alia, and Fatma herself. It just, again, top of the order. Gul Firoza has the strength to do it. Muniba has T20 100 as well, even in the domestic competition. Sidra Amin as well. It's just about they need to fire. T20 version is a smaller version of the game. They almost leave too much for that middle order to do, either whether setting scores or chasing scores. And that's where we lose tight games, 7 runs, 10 runs, 12 runs. So, and those runs can come up the order, like you say, if they make use of that power play.
Nas, you were asked the other day who your favourites were, and you came up with the unadventurous answers of England and Australia. I mean,
it was during an England-Australia men's game, so I just answered what the viewers wanted to hear, to be honest. So, yeah, I mean, listen, I can't see further than the 4 semi-finalists from last time in this format, which was South Africa, England, and South Africa beat England, and India, Australia, and Australia beat India. So I see them as the semi-finalists, but Sri Lanka have played a lot of good cricket of late. I do think the group that England are in is the slightly easier group, to be honest. The other group with Australia and India are the group of death. But but you cannot take anyone lightly. England are set up perfectly for it, really. They've got big power hitters at the top of the order, the likes of Danny Wyatt and Alice Capsey. And then you've got those three, now four spinners as well, but three world-class spinners, Sophie Eccleston, Sarah Glenn and Charlie Dean and Nat Sciver-Brunt, who would be, and there's a lot of all-rounders in the women's game at the moment, a lot of great all-rounders, but she would be near the top, if not top. So their nemesis has been Australia, although recently in the Ashes, that part of the Ashes, the T20 part of it, they beat them. So they don't fear Australia, but Australia, for me, still the side to beat.
And you're off tonight. You're flying tonight. No rest for the wicked. We're recording this the day after the end of the English season, which almost went into October ridiculously. But you're off tonight, aren't you?
Yeah, I looked at the weather outside my window in Chelmsford. It's chucking it down. So Dubai and Sharjah for me. Ath, what's next for you?
Well, I'll be flying to Multan on Friday for
You're covering it for the paper. Yeah,
we don't know what's happening rights-wise, but I'll be there for the paper in any case. So I look forward to seeing you, Urooj, and we'll look forward to hearing you, listening to you, and watching you on the coverage between England and Pakistan. I suspect England, they kind of caught Pakistan cold last time, didn't they, with Bazball? And that's the one thing I think we would expect, is that Pakistan will be forewarned in that case and may have some better plans up their sleeve, or different plans up their sleeve.
Atherton, you put me under the pressure for the World Cup. Who is the favourites? I mean, everyone listening to this podcast has got it 3-0 England again, same scoreline as last time. Who right now the favourites? Who are the favourites for an England-Pakistan Test series in Pakistan? And remember, it's hotter this time. It's 40 degrees nearly. Who are the favourites?
Well, if you look at how both teams are going right now, you'd have to say England are favourites. But I do not think the scoreline will be the same as it was last time England were there. I'll be very surprised if it's a 3-0 scoreline. But we shall see. But I mean, given where Pakistan's Test cricket is at the moment, I think you've got to say England are favourites to win. But we shall see. Urooj, it's very, very good to see you, and hopefully we might see you in a week or so's time in Malta.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I think for both venues, you guys can lose your jumpers because it's going to be 30 degrees and beyond in both the venues. So
life's too short for sensitive teeth. I'm looking forward to
it. I was waiting. I knew that was going to come at some point.
Grant, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.